Good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time you are. Welcome everybody. DM Geezer Jim here with Tenfin, and we are having another D&D chat. Jim and Josh talk D&D. Wanted to focus in a little bit more on actual play guide. I think this time, addressing both new players and maybe some of us veterans that play light and fast, loose and fast with the rules, so to speak. But we wanted to focus on spellcasting today. Um, while I make a couple adjustments, Josh, tell them what we're going to cover.
We're basically going to cover kind of like the basics of spell casting, more or less, like how to read a spell, how to, radius versus diameter on spells, stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
Effects of spells, when to use spells, kind of sort of. We could go into stuff like that. Upcasting, this kind of information we're going to go over.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, the idea being that maybe people are concerned with entering into playing a spellcaster. So let's drum it out. It's not very hard. It's the very much an easy to learn, hard to master type of a thing, which is the cool part about
Yes.
it.
I know a lot of people going into D&D are told like, "Oh, don't play a caster. It's hard to play a caster." It's really not. You might have to do more reading than a fighter because you have more than
There
one
it
button
is.
to click, but like, yeah, it's not harder.
If reading is hard, then for you as a player, as a person, if it's not something you enjoy doing, if it, then yeah, being a caster is going to be hard. If you don't mind reading a couple paragraphs at a time, and it's not any harder than spells aren't any harder than feats. If you're looking at fighter feats, spells are basically the same kind of thing. You could, for an easy comparison, they're gonna certain conditions will apply to the target based on the range and either the save or the roll to hit. So we'll get to that in a second. Spells, how do you learn them? You got right now two. I think it'll be three: divine and arcane. Divine guys are your druids, your paladins, your clerics, and druid, paladin, cleric, ranger.
I don't know what rangers fall into
We're gonna
actually.
leave ranger. We're gonna leave
Currently,
ranger kind of halfway over here with bard. But
yeah, because bard can do anything.
cleric, paladin, druid, they pray for their spells, meditate for their spells, whatever you want to call it. Their spells are granted through the powers of the universe through divine magic. We're not talking divination class, but just the idea of the spell. So the plus side of that is you have a lot of spells to select from. The downside of that is you have a lot of spells to select from. Your arcane guys are your wizards, your sorcerers, your warlocks. They're harnessing the energies of the universe, the latent energies, the elemental powers, the ley lines, the arcane energy, and turning it into spells and using it. Whether it was because they were born with the power with the sorcerer, they made a pact with something that could give them access to the power through a warlock, or they did it the hard way and read a bunch of books. The wizard. So those are, and then you have the bard kind of in the middle, and the ranger as catch-alls that can use a variety of stuff.
Yeah.
So
No. Yeah, I was just agreeing with you, but yeah. Bards are super fun because they are everything. Um, they might not hit hard, but they can do it.
yeah. So regardless of your class, you're going to start out with what's called prepared spells and spell slots. That's the first thing you need to know. Those increase as you level, both the amount of spells that are prepared and the slots that you have. Uh, I think of it as um, each, if for bullet terms, we'll use it that way. Your slot level is the caliber. Okay. Your slot type, the spell that you actually use is the particular type of bullet. You've got maybe it's the other way. Maybe it's bullets versus caliber. You level 4 slot, you got one shot. You can take 3 different types of shots with it, but you only get one of those shots. Does that make sense? You have 3 different types of ammo at level 4, for example, if you have one slot. 3 prepared spells, one slot, your choice. We'll get into the preparation in a second. Do you have a better parallel?
No, no. In my head, I just think about it as like exhaustion. Like it's harder to cast certain spells, so it makes you tired. So you don't cast higher level spells if you don't have to. But it's kind of like building up a muscle. You do it enough, you can do it more often.
Yeah, so as you elevate, now here's one thing in fifth edition. If you're coming from an older edition, you're gonna be that sucks. Fifth edition, you only get 4 slots maximum of any tier level of spells, whether it's
Unless you
correct.
cheat.
Unless you,
Unless you cheat.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, there's little
Yeah.
tricks. We'll get into those later. Now, if you look at a 20th level wizard in first edition, I think those suckers are packing 9 first level slots, 9 memorized first level spells. You look at a 20th level wizard in fifth edition, they got 4, the same as a 5th level wizard.
Yeah.
So that's one big change that kind of, in my opinion, kind of disempowers 5th edition guys a little bit, but it doesn't matter. It's a lot harder to get to 20th level as a first level wizard, or first edition wizard, I should say. Excuse me.
Yeah.
You're not going to make it past 3rd level most of the time with your 6 hit points. The fragments of the rock, save versus poison. Oh, do you have another one? Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
all they've done is doubled wizard hit points now because I've started multiple wizards with only 12 HP.
So
it's like, don't hit me, don't touch me.
Right. So spell slots are going to be the same whether you're a cleric, druid, wizard, warlock. Nope, we'll leave warlock out of this. We'll handle warlocks towards the end. I'm gonna let you speak on that. I know how to administer them, but you're a much better warlock player. But anyway, so spell slots, that's how they work. You have X amount of them. They increase as you go to a level, as you gain levels, and as you gain levels, you also get a increasing amount of spells prepared. So those are the variety of spells that you can have ready to use at any point in time. As long as you have the spell prepared and a slot that you can shoot that spell through, you can cast the spell. That's it. As you gain levels, as you gain experience playing that class, everything else will come together through play. But to start playing a casting class, all you need to know is to start with. That's how your spells work. X amount of slots, Y amount of prepared spells. Typically, Y is higher than X to give you options and varieties. Yes. Once X is done, you can no longer access Y. X will increase as your level, as will Y. Y being prepared spells, X being slots. No spell tier, we'll call it tier spell level, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th through 7th for wizards. Or is it 9th?
It goes up to 9th.
9th, yeah. 7th for divine, 9th for arcane. You'll never get more than 4 maximum slots without massaging rules or playing very smart with your build, as in any class, any of the classes. So you never have to worry about more than 4 bullets.
Yeah, and this is another one of those cases where D&D Beyond is a big help because it won't let you prepare more spells than you're able to. So you never have to even worry about like, oh, how many can I actually prepare? It'll cut you off. It'll be like, no.
You're done. Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where you can't even homebrew it. You can't even break the system and let yourself. You got to put a note down there that says DM note 5 extra spells if you're playing that way. So, but that's okay. It's for ease of use. This is what we're addressing as a new player. So yeah, the D&D Beyond or an experienced dungeon master won't let you get yourself in trouble. Spell slots and spell prepared numbers grow with you, so don't be intimidated by any of that. Day 1, you're gonna have what? 2 first level slots?
Not a whole lot. It depends on what you're playing.
I think a wizard will have 3. No, 2. And then it goes 3 to 2.
We can look real quick.
Yeah, we'll pull up.
Be 100% positive.
Yeah, may as well. It's not like we don't have the resources here. I've got Sorcerer up. We'll look at Sorcerer. Day 1 Sorcerer, you're coming out with 2 first level slots, which I think will be similar to a wizard, honestly. And so that means you can know 2 spells. And of those 2 spells, you can cast each of them once, or you can cast one of them twice.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Two at first level, but yeah. I mean, immediately you get 3, 4. It builds up like over those levels.
Level 3, you've got as a sorcerer. Level 3, you've got 4 first level slots, 2 second level slots, and we're not even touching cantrips yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Cantrips. Let's touch those now. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I love cantrips. A lot of people look down on cantrips, but I love cantrips because they don't cost any spell slots. Um, cantrips are basically like spells that you know so well that they're just kind of like meh, and I can throw them at you. They don't do a whole lot. There's not really going to be saves for them typically. Well, that's not completely true. But like how a lot of spells, like if you save against a spell, you still do half damage. Cantrips aren't going to do stuff like that. They're very low level weak spells, but they're so second nature to you that you can cast them all day if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's an apt description of them, and every person is going to have, every class is going to start with 4, I think at least 4, and it increases from there, and then there's ways to flip them out.
Yeah. Except for me, I built my warlock dumb, so I started with like 8 of them.
Jesus. But, you know, you described it perfectly well. Think of it as a boxer. We all know how to 1-2, you know, but getting that 1-2 to come into a third, it's muscle memory. Using the magic to the point where you really don't have to expend energy or a memory or resources to cast that spell. They're low level, but they're very effective. Low level, let me say low impact. But we'll get into the creativity aspect of it. Think of that as your wand attack from an MMO,
Yeah.
or from like Skyrim. You're just your basic magical choo 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 spell. That's what a cantrip
Beat
is.
up any MP at all. It's just something, yeah.
Don't
Every
cost.
MMO has that when you have your wizard, you just throw a ball of magic at people and it doesn't do any MP damage. It does very little damage to any enemies. Yeah,
So that's exactly what it. Yeah, there you go. A cantrip in D&D 5e and even your older editions that's the theme and concept of it. Just your free use magical. I don't want to stand in back and throw darts like I did back in 1e and play a wizard and hope I survive long enough to use my one spell today. Cast it! Dude, it's 10 a.m., man. We got a whole day to go. I ain't casting shit. So it gives you something to play with as a wizard in 5th edition. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to give you as a player or as a DM more things to do, more things to play with.
And then warlocks are basically built around casting cantrips. Like warlocks get a lot of cantrips that they can cast during a day, not a whole lot of spell slots.
Okay.
So like that whole class is built around just being able to cast cantrips more or less.
So let's go ahead and break down, take a step deeper now that we everyone should understand the difference between a cantrip and a spell slot. Let's get into a little bit of rulings here. There's lots of misunderstandings. The first rule that a lot of people come across is how many spells a turn can I cast. Barring exceptions, you use an action to cast a spell. As an action, blah, blah, blah. You use your action to cast a spell. So as many actions as you have, which in 99% of the cases is 1, you can cast a spell. Now there are certain... Were you going to say something?
No, I was agreeing. Yeah.
Jump in so I don't talk the whole time, man, please. But then you have certain spells that are cast as bonus actions.
Yes.
You know, like a weapon buff or something. You know, a paladin holy flame. I'm being bad and just naming random shit. But a weapon buff that you'd true strike aura. Give yourself bonus action true strike aura. Hit your target. That's and then execute your action to attack type of a thing. Correct?
Yes, correct. So yeah, you can cast as many spells as you have spell slots and actions for. However, the opposite of that is bonus action spells. You can only do one bonus action spell and a cantrip. You can't cast another spell. Doesn't matter what. Like your action has to be casting your cantrip.
So don't let the fine-tune wording mechanic scare you or confuse you. Typically, as a caster, you will either be able to do a spell as an action, or you will choose to do a cantrip as an action, or you might stab as an action. Anything that anyone else can do as an action, you can do, and you can cast spell. Every class or every character in Dungeons, every combatant has movement, action, bonus action, and reaction. Okay? There are spells that will work off of 3 of those: action, bonus action, and reaction. Okay?
Yes.
So just understand that as long as you understand action economy and you read the spell, you understand when the spell can be used and how to use it. The one caveat Josh is talking about is to prevent people from going, I'm going to cast my fireball as an action, and as a bonus action, I'm going to cast sacred weapon, and then as a reaction, I'm going to cast Misty Step.
Yeah.
It tries to prevent you from stacking a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, because you would get broken real fast as a caster if you could do whatever you wanted. If you could cast 3 spells per turn, it would get crazy. But
Yes.
that being said, there are certain spells that allow you to do that as you get higher level. They're not technically attacking more than once per turn. You just get more of them per turn.
Yeah.
So like Eldritch Blast, as you level it up, you start with 1 beam, and then as you level up, you'll get 2, or more of them, and you still do 2 different attack actions with that, but it's still only 1 action to cast it because that spell reads as you get 2 of these. So like that's part
Yeah.
of the reading the spell thing.
Yeah, exactly. When in doubt, read the spell. When in doubt, read the spell out loud. Do yourself the favor, do your DM the favor, and don't paraphrase. That
Yeah.
breaks my heart more than anything when someone starts reading something and I know and I know it. It's like, okay, but you left this part out, didn't you? Oh yeah, that's right. Come on, man. Read the spell, and you're going to learn from it, and everyone's going to learn from it. It's okay. You're not number 3 as a caster. I think you said this in one of our new player things. Well, I'm not going to say number 3, but I'm going to want to throw this as a caveat. You don't have to have all your spells memorized, y'all.
No,
I mean,
absolutely not.
here in your brain as a player, have an idea of what they do, but never be afraid or embarrassed to refer back to the spell card and read it. You don't have to memorize them all. Just know, you have to have an idea what they do and be able to access the information quickly so you're not dragging down the pace. But don't think you have to memorize shit.
And here's the best part: because of the pace of stuff, when you're in combat, you have time to read your spells. That there's not a spell on here that's going to take you longer than a turn to read. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, you have time to read it before it gets to you. Nobody's going to be mad if you don't pay attention to them doing whatever badass combo they're doing. They're not going to get mad at you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to do this. Oh, yeah, exactly. The pace. Great point. Pace of combat's going to give you the time to figure out what you want to cast while it's going on. Don't feel panic that I have to memorize them. I have to know how they work. They increase in difficulty with your player experience. For example, the ever-present lovely fireball. Everyone wants to throw fireballs, right? You don't get that till your 5th level. You've been playing D&D a little bit. Even if you're in a hyper fast, super accelerated experience campaign, a fast-paced one, you've got at least 7 or 8 sessions under your belt before you get here. You've had a few fights. You've done some stuff. So
Yeah.
before they hand you the keys to the big junk, you've had some time to play with the little junk. So again, just relax. That is one thing that I do enjoy about 5th edition. It eases you into the difficulty for your wizard stuff. The downside is it's kind of ambiguous in some of the writing. We'll get into that in the second part of our chat here.
Yeah,
But
I feel bad for wizards honestly in 5th edition. Like even though they get a lot of spells and stuff like that, like they're squishy as hell the entire time, unless you take feats that are going to be not as beneficial for you as other feats. Like you can take a feat that's going to allow you to wear light, heavy, or not light, medium, heavy armor. Like you can do that, but you're going to lose out somewhere else if you do it. They're going to be squishy the whole time, and even when they hit 20th level, they're not getting as good of a capstone as like a lot of other classes. So I really feel bad for wizards in 5e.
dude, I mean, we're doing a little bit of editorial right now, but that's okay. I think of and play a wizard as artillery. If your cannon shoots first at the start of any battle, your enemy knows where the F that cannon is, and they're going to take that cannon out, as you well should. If your artillery is waiting till the combat is initiated a little bit, the battlefield has been set to start firing, they can't deal with your follow-up artillery because they got shit in their face. The armored forces, that the tanks are crawling at them, the infantry's flanking with them, and the artillery starts banging, then you make a huge difference without worrying about being a mushy glass cannon. If you're the one that's going to walk 25 feet off to the right side of the formation and start blasting lightning bolts at shit, I'm going to mush you.
Yeah.
So that's play styles.
I spend a lot of time trying to diagonal myself from enemies so I can put a meat shield between me and them.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time doing that.
Now that'll lead us into the second part of kind, in my opinion, unless you wanted to add anything else to the basics of spell, what slots, how do slots work, how do prep work. One thing on prep.
Always remember to count your slots. Don't cast a spell, then not take the slot.
Yes,
Don't be that guy.
that's honest play.
Because then you have a DM like Jim who's like, wait, no, you've cast 6 first level spells and you're level 2. Hold on.
I do math. I know math sometimes. But the flip side of that is, or not the flip side, something we left out is preparation. Spells prepared are the ones you know. Warlocks, you know what you know. You know what you know. I think sorcerers know what they know. What they know is what they have prepared, right? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, yeah. There's stuff with like long rest. You can change cantrips and stuff like that. But yeah, basically you're locked in once you lock in.
Yeah. So your wizard prepares. They still have the same amount of access to prepared slots versus prepared spells versus use slots, but the wizards have to prepare and read from their book. Okay. Now they can have an increasing amount of spells. They can learn 25 spells between level 3 and level 4 through gameplay mechanics, through picking up scrolls, through finding an old spell book, through however. So wizards are not limited in how many spells they know, in the extent that they can add to it. There's no top end, but they have to learn them. Whereas clerics and paladins have access to every spell in existence. They have to prepare, they have to pray or meditate and pick the spell they want to add to their prepared list. So that's the differences. You want to just learn some spells and get out there and rock and roll and not worry about switching shit about, go with the warlock. If you want to add to a library and feel like you're doing the scholarly researchy thing, you go with the wizard. If you are just not worried about it, you go with the sorcerer.
And there are benefits and drawbacks to all of these things, right?
Yeah.
So like sorcerers they can get spell slots back like throughout the day. Warlocks get them back on a short rest, stuff like that. But then wizards know way more spells than everybody else, basically. So there's positives and negatives to all of the spell casting classes.
Now a bard falls in there kind of is the same as a warlock, whereas the extent that they have a lot of I hate to say warlock. What they know is what they know. They don't have they don't have access to a spell book. They don't get to pray for a divine, dear Tiamat or dear Helm, give me greater healing today. When you level a bard, you get to pick a new spell, and that's what you know. You don't, there are the optional rules in Tasha's will let you change one spell for another periodically, but you don't get to have an increasing amount of spells like you would in a spell book, like wizards do. So they kind of fall in the you know what you know camp, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you don't get more spells as you level up. Like bards like even have spells that they're like you just automatically get this spell as you level. It doesn't even have to be part of your prepared spells. It's always prepared, stuff like that. Like all the classes get things like that, where it's just like because of your subclass, you just get firewall as a spell just because of that's what you are, and it's always prepared and you always have it. It doesn't count against your prepared spells.
Perfect segue. So this is where getting into advanced spellcasting can help you. Advanced knowledge? That doesn't sound right. I hate to make it sound snooty like that, man. What's a good term? Intermediate. There we go. Yeah, an intermediate knowledge of spell and spellcasting can actually help you build your character. If you're kind of intrigued in spellcasting, then a huge difference is exactly what Josh was talking about. Your subclasses, your colleges as a bard, your what are they called as wizards? So your
oh man,
is it colleges as wizards as well?
I think wizards are still colleges.
Yeah, your pact, the type of pact you have is your warlock. Your arcane background. I'm sorry.
Wizards.
What?
Wizards are arcane traditions. That's what they are.
Arcane traditions. Okay.
Yeah.
For the yeah. Okay. So and then you have the churches, the oaths. Blah 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 blah. Every one of your spellcasting subclasses has specific things, cantrips and spells. Well, not cantrips for paladins, but not yet. But spells that accentuate that background a little bit. So if you want to be a grave cleric versus a death cleric, you have more disease kind of spells versus undead spells, for example. So the next level of it is once you kind of understand how spells work and how they cast, you can use the subclasses to kind of pre-build to kind of enhance what you want to do with that character, or you can
Yeah,
use it to
exactly.
guide what spells you want to select. You know,
Yeah, so like for instance, if you want to be like your standard, I throw fireballs and lightning bolts and stuff like that. You're like, oh, I'm going to take an elemental sorcerer because they do elemental type damage and stuff like that, and that builds towards that kind of like play style. They're basically different suits that each of the people can wear.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the intermediate level of it. That's knowing how spells operate. I get all of that. I know how a slot works. I know how prep works. I'm trying to figure out how to build a caster. Well, the next level is number one, deciding are you a warlock, are you a sorcerer, are you want to go divine or arcane? What we talked about earlier. You know.
And actually, on the subclass thing, this is where things also become a little tricky because there are multiple subclasses for martial classes that can also give you spells. For instance, you can be an arcane trickster rogue,
Echo
and you
Knight.
get spells as a rogue. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, you can get spells with basically any class. Actually,
Shorter,
I think yeah, every class I think you can get spells with.
not barbarians.
Barbarians? Oh, okay.
You cannot cast a spell while you're in
What?
rage.
Well, that's true, but there is
Spell
like
like
wild.
abilities.
Yeah, there's wild magic barbarians though that
Oh,
do
that's
like
true.
wild magic surge and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yep. Touche. Touche.
yeah.
But arcanists what do I? Artificers cannot cast spells because they don't believe in magic. I'm taking a sideways jab at one of our well played characters over here.
I I've been gaslighting the party for that magic isn't real.
It's technology, you idiots.
You just don't understand how it works. Keep getting mad at one of our
And
wizards
I feel
because they keep
bad.
stealing my schematics.
We're leaving artificers completely out of this. They're also
Oh yeah,
magic
that's true.
users.
They are, yeah. I
You know,
completely forgot about. Well, they're to be
hybrid.
fair, they're like the newest class that exists. To
Yeah.
be fair,
Yeah. Okay, but they
I play
still
one and I forgot about it. So I mean,
but they still work the same in regards to cantrips, to spell slots, to known and prepared. You know, still same basic rules. Whatever your class is, spell slots. How many shots do I get? Spells prepared. What kind of ammo do I have to select from? That's it. You know.
and then you can get even further with them with their arcane armor. I have a homunculus servant. It's like a robotic, like magical
A
thing.
little mini me. A mini
Yeah,
me
they
for
have
a
like
gnome is a mini me.
yeah, all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Artificers are very cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, you've got the basics of how spell slots and all that kind of stuff work. There's three things that go with them. All spells. Let's go into a little bit deeper on spells themselves, and then we can kind of start the parts of a spell, as it were. Verbal,
Yeah.
somatic, material. We tend to ignore these things unless it's a moment to make a big deal out of them all of a fucking sudden. Oh, you have a verbal component in that spell? Well, in that case, 97 other casts I didn't care as a DM, but this one time I go, aha! Somatic. Oh! Material. The tink. Yeah, exactly. The hand movement that Doctor Strange is doing is your somatic, and the material is Thora's hair. You know, talking some shit, moving my hands, and throwing something in the air. Verbal, somatic, material. Every spell has at least one of the three, if not all three.
Yeah.
So
basically every spell requires somatic, if nothing else. So.
yes. Now there are exceptions to that rule. We'll get into that when we get to the advanced section. But yeah, so understanding that that's something that a lot of times we let slide, but it's a gameplay mechanism that you need to keep track of if you want to have a more living world, a believable environment, more challenging, as it were. How can you do a verbal component underwater?
I mean, I can breathe underwater. Try me.
well, exactly. Well, hypothetically, if you could, it doesn't have to. Does it have to be, the specific?
Yes, you have to be able to hear it because otherwise silence wouldn't work.
Correct.
So it has to be something that you can be able to actually get out. Yes.
Yeah. So little things like that come into when you start paying attention. Are your people restrained? Well, they cannot cast a single spell that has a somatic component. If that roper got your wizard all bound up like that, he can shout and curse and cuss all he wants, but if he has to move his hand to cast that spell, it doesn't work. Material. Material is one of those that logistics, man. Go ahead, dude.
As a DM, just give your wizard a damn like component kit. Don't be like, look, you're gonna have to pick up every flower, every like skull, every like everything. If you need an eye of a gorgon, you better go find a gorgon. Just give them component pouches. It'll make your life so much easier.
Unless, as a DM, you're playing a more mature, more restricted campaign environment where they're not going to necessarily have access to all of that stuff, and they may want to add that measure to their game. Take Out of the Abyss.
That's fair. Yeah.
They start out naked and afraid. At level 4, they're completely ignoring material components. Nothing has changed. They're a little bit more dressed. They're a little more brave. They didn't run across the fucking 7-Eleven, excuse my language, and find a component pouch. But all of a sudden, they're able to blow shit up left and right. That should be something that, in certain settings, adds to it. I agree with Josh in 90% of the situations. Give them the component count. Give them the freaking arcane focus. Just let's have some fun. Let's play with it. But at the same time, if your wizard wants to do that as part of their background and the party's willing to bog down 15 or 20 minutes of every session picking flowers, that's up to y'all. That's
fair, yeah.
That's something that is not required. It only adds to the game, but it can definitely take away from if you make it. So yeah, that's a great point. Great point.
I mean, like stuff like what Desert of Desolation, where it's like that's part of the story is that you're struggling through it. I can see stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's again towards back for our beginner stuff. Like, there's a game out there if you want to play it. It exists if you want to worry about that.
How many pinches of sulfur you got? 11. You really want to cast that right now? No.
That could be fun too, because then it makes your casters have to think more about what they're actually doing with their spells as well. So I mean, yeah, that it could definitely add to a game.
Yeah. So, but that's more for a higher level of difference here. If you're tracking ammo, if the campaign is worth tracking ammo, tracking food, tracking weight, all of that, it might be worth tracking spell components.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just to use that as a measure. But by and large, as a new player, that shouldn't be something you have to worry about very much. Hold on. I'm pausing 1 second. Sorry.
No, you're good. I mean,
we can keep talking, but pause. Apologize. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Pause, guys. Yeah, we're talking about components, using them as something that are part of the spell casting experience. It's hand wave them and not worry about it with component pouches and arcane focuses and the like, or use them heavily to influence the campaign. Add a little bit more of a survival and resource kind of a thing to it. Now, there are some components that differ. A DM should make sure that anything that has a gold piece cost is addressed. You don't want to be giving them 100 gold piece pearl level 1 to make them run their chromatic orb, for example, unless, as part of the loot table, maybe, oh, cool, now I can use that spell that my daddy taught me that I didn't know how to have it. So, diamonds for resurrections are another thing. So that's where economy comes into play. Handle that how you want. But keep in mind, certain components have a gold piece value and are consumed when they cast the spell. So they need to have a ready supply of those components. How you handle that is up to you.
No, I fully agree. Yeah, if someone says it costs a diamond to cast it, definitely make them use that diamond. I do actually agree with that. Like, even beyond the component pouch thing, yeah, because at some point in time they're just gonna be like, well, we're casting it because that makes resurrection mean something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I have to give I think it's 2 diamonds for resurrection, 200 gold piece diamonds,
500 gold pieces worth of diamonds, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, something like that. But yeah, still, that's ridiculous. What happens if you have like 1,000 gold piece diamond? Does it just take half of it?
I believe it's a minimum. It can be a bunch of smalls to add up to it, or it could be one equal to, or I would assume one over value.
Yeah.
So I mean, but yeah, that gets into the economic stuff of it. So keep that in mind. Game balance type of a thing. It can scarcity, rarity, things like that. So let's verbal somatic components, verbal somatic material. Verbal, you have to be able to talk. You have to be able to be heard. Somatic have to be able to do the Kung Fu Hustle Doctor Stranges.
Mm.
Material have to have the goodies to throw in the air. Once that's covered, your spellcaster has what they need to shoot magic. Okay? The next thing is understanding what the spells do. Each of them has a casting time. That'll range from instantaneous for a reaction spell. Typically, most of them say one action or one bonus action. I believe the only ones that say instantaneous refer to reaction, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yep. Because that's technically the only time. You could use it as an action as well. It's instant. You just boom, instantaneous rather than an action. It can be a minute. It can be 10 minutes. It can be a day. Or an hour.
Adding additional onto this is ritual casting as well. So there might be something like detect magic, which would cast you. I think it's an action to do it normally, but then it's 10 minutes if you do it as a ritual. Like, so
Yes.
there are different things like that. So like ritual casting will typically add. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's 10 minutes in addition to whatever the normal time is. So it's 11 minutes, I think, for that one, and normally it's a 1 minute cast. Yeah.
The advantage of doing that is it doesn't use your spell slot when you use it as a ritual.
Yes.
The disadvantage is it's 10 minutes. So if you're in the heat of battle or if you're in a tense situation, a DM should manage that and not let your people sit down and do a ritual casting whenever they feel like they don't want to use a spell slot. Punish them for it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because remember, like around the combat is 6 seconds. Like, so
that's
doing a minute for even doing a minute for a spell is going to take 10 rounds.
Yeah.
And if you're wanting to do something that's 10 minutes, it's going to take you 100 rounds.
Yep.
So
So yeah, they balance themselves out, but that's ritual casting is to enable them to use. That's honestly, in my opinion, was the it. I don't want to get into the whole detect
it
magic
is for
and
stuff
identify.
like yeah, I was gonna say it is for stuff like detect magic, so you can use it out of combat. So it's
Yeah.
not like a whole thing. Like, oh no, I just wasted a spell just so I can know what kind of magic this item is.
Encourage your party to use the rituals so you can be a little stricter with magic items. For example, that's rule against rule, doesn't matter. So you'll have your casting time. That'll vary. Every spell has it listed. It's in Dungeons and Dragons terms. So if you're familiar with order of actions, if you're familiar with the turn sequence, the casting time will make perfect sense to you as well. Range. Typically, range and area are important.
Yes.
Target has to be within a given range, and then some spells give an area of effect. Okay, we're looking at Fireball right now because hell, everyone loves fireballs, right?
Yes.
So it's got a range of 150 feet. That's quite a range. In context, if you're a virtual tabletop user using a 5-foot grid, that is going to be 30 squares. 30 squares that if your guy can see it, they can throw a fireball. So that's why I use big ass maps a lot of times. Give these poor fools somewhere to hide, man.
Yeah, because then you have somebody like me who's got a warlock that can double his distance of his casting length, and I have 300 feet that I can cast a fireball in.
So this is going a little bit on the intermediate side. In a lot of cases, range doesn't matter because of the size of the encounters. But it's something to keep track of. As a DM, I keep track of it a lot when I'm building areas and drawing maps to make sure I have line of sight breaks at certain distances to force them to move, to do something, things like that. So range matters. Most of your combat situations are within 30 to 40 feet, so range doesn't matter that much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, area matters quite a bit. How much of a oomph is it going to be? Okay.
Because if I'm in a 30-foot room, I'm not casting a fireball that's, it's going to take up the entire room.
So fireball has a 20-foot radius sphere centered on the point. So within 150 feet, the caster of the fireball can declare a point, and the fireball, poof. Well, I think a little thing shoots from your finger. It's uninterruptible. You can't put a shield in front of it and suddenly block your little fireball spark. It's just, that's how they describe it. That's why I consider it manifest at that point as an explosion of fire, right?
Yeah.
However, delivery doesn't matter. That's just for context. Mechanically speaking, the fireball erupts in a 20-foot sphere centered on the point. Now, there's no need to aim. There's no need for the wizard to do anything but say, I'm casting fireball on that point. Then you do the math. 20-foot radius sphere. Radius versus diameter. Make sure you brush up on your middle school geometry here, okay? You got to make sure you understand radius. You understand diameter. You got to understand how to figure out a cylinder's area as well, because your spells are given in area effect. So
Yes.
not hard, not hard. Just and no one's gonna get mad at you if you mess up the math a little bit. Just be consistent with your mess up. If you've been doing it wrong for the first 4 levels, keep doing it wrong for the next 8 levels because it wasn't a big deal.
That's fair.
you
I
know?
mean, and you're always free to change it if you want to too. Like it's
Yeah.
not nobody's gonna get mad at you if you were like, oh, I was giving you half the
My bad.
the actual size of your fireball. Let me give you the rest of it. Nobody's gonna be
Guilty.
mad about that.
Early on in 5e, I was guilty of that. I've always been used to a 30-foot diameter fireball since the inception of fireballs in BECME and 1e and 2e. They were 30-foot diameter. It was like in my DNA. It's like, okay, I'll give you a 20-foot. That makes it a little less painful. No, it's 20-foot radius. I know, 20 foot. Oh fuck. Yeah, it's a 40-foot diameter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's
So
a sphere.
fireballs, yeah.
So that's when you start bringing 3 dimensions into X, Y, and Z axes come into play here.
Because for instance, there are things like moonbeam that are a colander. Like they shoot from, like all the way up and down.
Yep, it's
So
a full cylinder that affects from the base of the cylinder to the top of it, including we figured out microwaving people that are in the floor above where the target was.
yeah.
Because that's where you start getting into the fine tuning. Unless it says, for example, well, let's finish up Fireball before we get into something a little more complex. Okay. So Fireball has been launched. The caster doesn't have to do anything other than be able to see the point within 150 feet where they want that Fireball to go off. At that point, your spell is going to tell you duration, instantaneous. Means it goes off and it's done. Boom, done. There are some effects that are described within the spell text, but it's not a spell that continues to go on. Not something that's sitting there burning for 5 minutes because the spell says so. School, don't worry about school right now. That gets a little funky later. If you're a wizard, that matters. The rest of us really don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Attack, save. That's the next thing you need to be worried about as a player. Do I need to attack with the spell, or does the target need to make a savings throw? In this case, everything within the effect, the 20-foot radius sphere of their fireball makes a dexterity save. Okay? How good are they at doing the matrix and the dodge, or did they cover their face so they still got eyebrows and a beard, or they take that shit straight and go, ah! That's your dexterity save. For this condition, and typical, if you make your save, you take half damage. If you fail your save, you take full damage, right?
Yes. And some people might be like, well, that doesn't seem very fair, that like even if you don't, even if they succeed, they take half damage. But in order to balance this stuff, there are classes like rogue that can, if it's something that takes half damage, they take none of it. Like if it's a spell like fireball that does that, like if you succeed, you take half damage. The rogue doesn't have to do anything else. They just are fine. They get out of the way of it. So they have balanced these out well enough.
Yeah, absolutely. But this fireball, there's a plethora of AoE type spells. There's a lot of direct damage spells. The thing that you got to worry about when you're using spells for offense is it a save or is it an attack? There's a handful of spells that are auto hit. If you see the target will take damage from this spell no matter what, unless you have a shield spell to stop magic missile. That's primarily the first and foremost.
I was gonna say magic missile is the main one that everybody thinks of. That it just hits.
Yeah.
There's no save, no nothing. It just hits. You just roll damage.
There's not many of those. There's a handful of them. There's not many of them to worry about. But most of them, you either have to do a 2-hit roll, which if you're looking at your character sheet as a magic user, you'll see the plus to hit. No different than hitting with a weapon. You have a plus to your attack roll to hit with this spell. Or it'll have the target make a save, in which case it tells you what the save is against, and you have a difficulty check as part of your character sheet. A low level is going to have a DC of like 12. So if you were to cast a sleep spell, they have to make a wisdom save DC of 12 against a first level wizard, probably, to not fall asleep. Wait, no, sleep doesn't have a save. That was my bad.
Yep.
See, tiny little details that you remember halfway through talking. There's so many of them in spells. But yeah, sleep is a great idea. It doesn't have a save. Targets don't get to do anything but fall asleep. It just affects a certain number of hit points.
And okay, so we can also talk about how you actually calculate some of these numbers as well, right?
Okay.
So your modifier for attacks, like if you like spell attack modifier, is going to be whatever your modifier is for the ability that the spell is being cast through. So like if you have an intelligence of 20, then your attack modifier is going to be a +5. Like that's just what it's going to be.
Plus your proficiency.
Well, yeah. The modifier is +5. Then your spell attack is going to be plus proficiency. So like if you have a +3,
7 or
then
8.
it's 8.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
stuff like that. Yeah, and then your DC is typically twice whatever the spell attack is.
I
So
think
like
it's
if it's 8, then it's like 16 typically.
yeah, there's math behind it, and each of
Yeah.
your as you go through your classes, they'll tell you how to figure it out. You don't need D&D Beyond to figure out the numbers. It's part of the class description. Your spell, your caster's attack modifier is this. So yeah, that's perfect example sitting in the book.
Yeah, and 100% in the book, each of them tells you this is how you get this number. Every one of them has it.
Yep. So pay attention to that. You can self determine and make sure that your numbers are good there. So yeah, that's spell casting in a nutshell. Make sure you got the slots. Make sure you know the spell, that it's prepared. Follow whatever the spell's instructions are. Use an action to cast a spell. Make sure it's within the range of the target. Make sure the target is within the area of the spell. Once you declare the spell, everything has been met up to that point. Then you either roll to hit or have the target roll to save, and then you issue damage or condition. The same thing works for charm. Target is within 30 feet. Target makes a wisdom save. Target fails to save. I now have them charmed. It's not damage, it's a condition. But yeah, all of your spells function on the same basic framework. It's either a targeted spell that you roll for, or it's a save spell where the target gets to try to avoid some, if not all, of the effect.
Yeah. and uh, spells, don't let anybody tell you that a spell is useless. Like if you want to do a spell, get the spell. There are a lot of times where I'll pick a spell that like I never even use it the intended way that it's supposed to be used. Like I have a spell that allows me to teleport people, and I've never used it for combat. I've only ever used it to get us out of situations.
Yeah,
Like
that's
it.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
So,
You know, prestidigitation we use constantly. We use prestidigitation almost every session. Like
somebody
like,
smelling funky, someone getting dirty, something like that. Yeah. So it's
yeah.
yeah. That's now I'm going to address the DMs a little bit on what Josh is talking about. If you want the creative use of this magic, of all of these cool things that you're looking through, that's cool, but no one would use it. That's cool. Why would they use it? Give them a damn reason to use it. You know.
That's true too.
At the end of the day, if detect magic is an important aspect to you, this is your game at home. Say, yeah, I know the book says that if you pick up a rusty sword that's magic, you instantly know it's magic, but that doesn't work in my world. If you want to find a magic item, you got to cast detect magic on the pile of shit and it'll start glowing. Make that spell have value. Even if they're doing it as a ritual, you know, make that spell, knowing that spell, have value. You know, the prestidigitation. If I didn't make such an emphasis on things being dirty and stinky and nasty all the time, they wouldn't cast Presto.
I even used it on another player at one point in time just to piss him off.
Lavender.
we have a player that his character likes to be dirty, so I made him clean.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a fun RP moment. Like
Yeah.
so, like don't ever let somebody tell you like that a spell is useless. You know. If
And
you want to use it and you think and you have an idea of how it could be fun or how it could be useful, get it. Take it.
that doesn't. Yeah, exactly. And that's a beautiful point. Not every spell needs to be a combat. Not every moment of spell use needs to be a combat situation. Not every time you shouldn't instantly be rolling for initiative because your players want to use magic. Some of them are absolutely. I want to use charm person on the bartender to see if he'll give me the ledger so I can see who signed in. Yeah, okay, that's contested. But the spells tell you that. They say when it's an unwilling opponent, blah, blah, blah. So the spells themselves, the description and the wording of the spell will help a DM and help a player determine, is this a hostile action or not? But there's a lot of non-hostile stuff that you can do with the spell that's fun. You know?
And for DMs, when players do this, if they try to charm the bartender and if they fail, not and they fail, but if they fail, that bartender knows that they just did that. you know? So that can also help you out. Like they can be like, "No, out of my bar now. You just cast a spell on me," or call the police on them or something, you know?
Well, add one level to that. When the spell is no longer charmed after the 10-minute to
Yeah,
hour duration, they are aware they were charmed. So no matter what, the charm
yeah,
is
absolutely.
calm emotion is I think the only one that keeps everything cool.
Yes.
Because all you're trying to do is, hey, chill, baby, baby, chill, honey bunny, chill, like Samuel L. Jackson style at Pulp Fiction. There, you're just trying to chill the shit out. You know, whether you succeed or not, no one's mad at you. You know, so but yeah, there's a spell that will probably go along with most of what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's an exhaustive list of spells. They add new spells with every game book. They add new spells with every expansion, and they're going to revise everything come January again. So you know
Absolutely.
the
Spells are gonna be wild, I guarantee it.
but the plus side is whether you're playing fifth edition or 5.5/1/ whatever the hell they're calling it, the spell system is going to work the same. Everything that you're hearing from us right
Yeah.
now will carry over to the new system. So, you know what? I think that's some good mechanical blah 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 yada yada yadaing here. Why don't we talk about some fun creative uses for spells, some combinations, and you can throw because Josh is like big brain on this plus this equals the depth of the world, and I'm kind of the so you know
Yeah,
we can balance each other out here.
or yeah. So a lot of people know about some of these things, but like Jim always comes up to us. He's like, "No, it's not going to work because of this." So like for instance, one of our favorite things is like, and this isn't a spell, but just this is just an example, is the peasant railgun, which is you line 1,000 people up, you hand them a spear, they each pass a spear. And within 6 seconds, it goes to 1,000 people. That's 5,000 feet that a spear just moved in 6 seconds, and then it gets launched. You know, but Jim's like, well, no, you can't do that because then it loses all momentum when the person goes to throw it. That person just got his arm ripped off when he went to throw it. Or it stops halfway through because it's gained so much speed already.
Yeah, no matter. So that's how I
Yeah.
tend to do things. No matter how well you plan it, here's the breakdown for it. Here's where it will fail. Love the idea, but you know,
Another person I really want to do. We want to go to. We want to find a kraken, then true polymorph it into a lizard, so that we can take it into a town that we have to put a teleportation spell inside of, so that we can unpolymorph the kraken, teleport out, and it's just basically you just nuked a town. So like stuff like that.
yeah,
I always think about silly things with spells is what I like. Like I've grease on a character just because I like to make people fall over.
yeah.
That's my thing with spells. I like to do funny things.
But you know, and from a mechanical standpoint, having everyone on the battlefield prone all of a sudden is a big thing because they're using half their movement
Yes.
to get up. So if you've got if he casts it between an enemy and them, they all hit the ground. Number one, when they're prone, um, well, you assuming you can craft, assuming it doesn't affect your team as well. If the enemy's all prone, they're have advantage on attacks. Any attacks that hit them are crits, correct? No, not for prone. That would be for unconscious. My bad.
No,
But for
but
prone,
you do have advantage when they're prone. Yeah.
advantage on attack, and
Yes.
they have to use half their movement to get up, and then it's difficult terrain to move from there,
Right.
right?
And yeah, and while they're down, they can't cast spells. They can't take opportunity attacks, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
So
yeah, it's useful.
it's a very useful area
Yeah.
effect spell that doesn't do any damage, does do anything when no one thinks to use it because how often does that happen? Well, how you know, are you not fighting more than one monster at a time? What's your DM doing? You know?
I've laid traps with it before.
Yeah.
You know, it's where like we know that we can collapse the ceiling onto a group of people. I just put grease down. They all start sliding, and then we could collapse the roof on them.
Well, yeah,
And that's you don't even have to roll, you know, an attack dice in order to kill all these people. Well, I mean, you have to attack the roof, but
and that becomes incumbent on me as a DM to say, yes, there's really no rule for what is the. If you look far enough in the DM's guide and put enough tables together, you can come up with a ruling. If I'm being completely honest, but how much damage do they have to do to that support column to bring it down to collapse it on the people in that room? Man, you're gonna shoot off the hip on that. Don't say no because I don't know how to make that realistic. That's a cool moment, man. You know,
yeah,
make it difficult enough to where you don't make it a standard thing. You know, okay, well, you need to do 45 combined damage with this spell, you know, or you 45 combined damage, or if you can do 25 in one roll, it's enough to collapse it. You know, shoot off the hip. It's okay. Give them that moment to be cool.
Some DMs like that though. I saw a thing once where a DM had to go in and calculate the wind resistance on a cow because a player dropped a cow on an enemy, and he's like, "How much damage would it actually realistically do to this person?" And they had to go in and do the math for it. So I mean, some DMs like that kind of stuff to like to yeah. But anyway, and that's also a fun thing with spells. You can sometimes do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just summon a cow above somebody.
I'm placing Dimension Door under or Plane Shift under that cow, and it's gonna drop. Yeah, there's a plethora. That's where I think the reputation of spellcasting being hard comes from, because as wild as your imagination can get as a Dungeons and Dragons or as any tabletop role playing game, there's a spell to support that and make that a potential reality. So that's where the next level of it, the difficulty of it, especially as a DM adjudicating it. You don't have to memorize everything, but you have to have a good enough working knowledge of the world to make it work for the players. And it's not one of those we're giving everything to players. It's rewarding creativity, man. It's not any fool can throw a fireball and do 8d6 damage to everything in there. That takes no skill. It's you act like you did something special because the DM put everything in a pile for you to fireball. That's normal. That's the minimum expectation for a wizard. If we're being honest, the creative use of spells is what we need to prepare for and adjudicate for as DMs to reward. Set up the line of guys for the lightning bolt every third or fourth fight. Give the heroes the moment to be heroes, but focus on the times where they're using magic for creative stuff, and don't boo-boo them because it gives them a shortcut around the dungeon you wanted them to go to. That's smart play. That's agency, and reward that stuff.
So here's actually something it was just a thought that I was having, that this has nothing to do with combat. It has nothing to do with you using spells within your game. Even is that magic can also be a big part of people's backstories, because we do live in a world of magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are even types of magic that players don't really have access to that exists within the world. Like elves have high magic, which is a super powerful magic, but like other players can't really do high magic really. Like high magic elves have been known to change people's races, even like you're an elf, now you're an orc,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. Like so like the stuff like that can play into your backstory very well. One of my favorite things is I want to play a chair that was magically turned into a human. I think that's super fun. Like you can do stuff like that, and that's something that fully works as your
Yeah.
backstory, and it has nothing to do with what level you are or anything.
Yeah.
Like this is stuff that can. You live in a world of magic where stuff can just happen to people sometimes,
Yeah. And at the same time, as a dungeon master, always remember that this is your world, this is your setting, you have the agency. These rules for spells are there for players. We don't have to play by the same rules. Okay? I have lots of permanent anti-magic shells and anti-magic zones, for example, as part of dungeons. Glyphs of warding that reset, things like that. The idea of and they actually, in the older days, they gave us a spell called permanency that would let you go ahead and factualize anything you needed to do as a DM. That doesn't exist anymore. But if you
They had to get rid of it because of players, though, because players were like, I'm going to make a Rod of Wish and I'm going to cast permanency on it.
yeah, so shame on players for taking something that they gave us just to give things logical sense and breaking it again. But I mean, there's examples of this stuff in 5th edition in print that for whatever reason this area does this magical effect and it duplicates this. You have that same right and privilege as a dungeon master for the players to be being very creative with stuff. If you're looking for traps, you want a wind total or something, use your gust of wind spell as a basis for it. The tunnel that's corrugated iron and grating and it's 150 foot long and it gets narrow as it goes, and once they hit the halfway point, the entire thing gets hit with a permanent heat metal spell. Have fun, guys.
and this might not be a very popular thing, but as a DM, you are also within your rights to go, no, you can't do anything about stopping this spell.
Yep.
And it could even be something like, oh, I changed the DC to such a high number that there's no way, even if you rolled against it, you could hit it. Stuff like that. Like, because sometimes you need to do stuff for story reasons, and your big bad can do stuff that your players can't do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't really be a big bad, and there wouldn't be a reason for them to be going after him.
Right there. Absolutely. And as the crotchety old DM, I take it a step further, and I don't tell them till after they've tried. I want to cast a spell magic. Go for it. What's my DC? You cast a spell and you realize as it goes through the overwhelming force that rebounds against your attempted dispel magic is just so strong that you're not going to be able to do anything about it. Check off that third level slot. Nice try, though.
That was something I had to learn whenever I would build something and be like, oh, I don't want players to get past this thing. And they'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to cast Dispel Magic on it, and then they could hit the DC. And I like after a few times of that happened, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make it so it doesn't matter. Like, the person that made this spell is such a high level that there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, you're
Get
like,
over it.
fool, you in the lair of a Cesarac right now. What the hell you think
Yeah.
you're doing, you know? Craptivus is like a 800-year-old lich, and you think that your puny Dispel Magic is going to touch what? No, get on out of here, fool. You have that. Not only do you have that agency, you have that responsibility to make sure the wonder and the awe stays in the world. Think of spells as the formulas that your players get to use. Not even these are the formulas. You get the elements. You get to make what you want. They've got H2O. You've got H and O in an endless amount to do what you want with. So think of it that way as a DM standpoint. If this is all chemistry formulas, you have the freaking periodic table. All they have is the formulas. You know?
All I can think about is H2O2 now. Is like I just turned your water into hydrogen peroxide. Get over it.
But I mean, there's the flip side of that is just some creative stuff that players can do that you got to be prepared for. For example, going ethereally and entering into a gigantic creature's body, and then manifesting themselves long enough to set off a fucking create water spell in the left lung to begin drowning something, and then phase shifting back out of it. How are you going to educate that, dude? You know?
Which is messed up because like rules as written, you can 100% do that because the only thing for create water is you have to be able to visibly see where you're creating it, and if you can get into a spot and visibly see it, then you can cast create water there. You can drown a person. But I think that on the flip side, as a DM, you're like, okay, well, if you want to do that, then my people also have access to that. Like, if you want to play this game, we can play this game.
Because and I have a habit of going, okay, so if you're doing that and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, who's going to win this escalation? So, but at the same time, you gotta don't be a dick about it. Respect your players' creativity and talk it through and make them understand it's a genius idea. But if you were capable of doing that with a level 2 spell, why weren't you doing that from level 3 forward every single combat? Because that's the most efficient way you could do everything. So it's
why isn't every kingdom out there just have a bunch of people doing the same thing to any enemy they have?
Yeah. So, but that's where it kind of leans back into a term I use a lot: the spirit of the game. You could do this, but it's going to break the whole reason, the whole idea of the whole of what we're doing. So let's just pretend. Let's just ignore that. Creative idea, awesome idea, but we're going to say no, and that's what Josh was saying. Don't be afraid to say no. You have a responsibility to say no in a lot of cases.
Yes. Also, I think we should also get into reading of spells for certain things. Like sometimes there's commas in places that they should be semicolons, stuff like this. So as a DM, sometimes you might have to go like what is it? Resistance to cold, lightning, acid from non-magical objects, right? So like as red, that means if you can cast magic like that does that damage, he still takes damage. But like what non-magical way are you casting acid? Like stuff like that. So
in the event this creature finds an acid vat to jump into, he's resistant to it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So great point. Give yourself the freedom, give yourself the flexibility, but above all else, be consistent in how you apply stuff as you learn how to do it. Learning, playing it, practicing it, it's by definition inconsistent. But if you've been ruling something for quite a while and everyone's enjoying it and having fun, and this is from a DM's point of view. Everyone, as you get into your DM career, you're going to hit this point where you've made a ruling, and you weren't sure about it, but it was cool at the time, and everyone's having fun with it, and you're going along with it. In level 3, man, this is getting a little harder, and you finally read it, and you get into the conditions of you go, oh my god, I just broke my whole fucking world. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point where you tell your players in the spirit of the game. But if you're going through it, it's like, they're going to be doing a lot more damage, but I can mitigate it. Let it flow, because everyone's having fun with it, man. But yeah, that's stuff that you're not going to understand until you're on the other side of learning it, until you've gone through a few dozen sessions of rolling the dice and doing the math and seeing how it adds up, and all of a sudden you've created a monster, and that's okay. Just make sure that your group understands as you nerf it why they're doing it. Show them,
Exactly.
hey guys, I know this sucks, but I've already done the math, and when we get to a level 11, for example, this is resulting in this, and there are 4 monsters in the whole monster manual that have that much hit points for you to fight at level 11. So let's stop doing this now. And everyone's like, cool.
Yeah. Like I had a DM that allowed us, if we didn't move, to take 2 attack actions, which, like, as that escalates, that gets wild at higher levels, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a wizard. I don't ever have to move ever. Like, I 2 attack actions? Yeah, I'm casting Fireball twice, you know?
Looking like freaking Avatar ATLA straight
exactly.
up. That brings us to
and
one
we get
thing.
bonus actions for both of them? Oh, hell yeah.
Oh my
Like,
god. One thing we did leave out as far as spell stuff goes. Concentration.
yes, concentration is some of it.
It's a simple concept that often gets forgotten or ignored.
Like we did.
Yeah. Don't mess with, number one, don't mess with the idea of concentration. It's like, well, maybe I'll give them an item that will let them carry 2 concentrations, or maybe at level 20. No. Concentration spells are so freaking powerful in some circumstances that's the only thing keeping anything going on, is the fact that you can only manage 1 at a time. I mean, for example, let's use Chucho the other night, where I had to keep Spirit Guardians up via concentration. If I was allowed to then go into my Divine Radiance, or what was the one that lets me heal max everybody.
Yeah. I can't think of the spell name right now, but I know. Yeah.
Yeah, so all of a sudden I have a blender of ghosts running around that I don't have to concentrate in anymore, and I switch over to this one and cast a mass healing, and everyone gets healed for 48 hit points because of my class.
Yeah.
And I'm doing 5d6 per turn to everything near me, and I'm healing for max on 2. Don't give yourself multiple concentration. Never. Never.
Yeah,
Ever.
that gets bad very fast. Like Bless and Bane both up at the same time.
Oh, that would be so badass. Bless and anything, or Bane and anything up at the same time is huge. Just even if you say, well, we'll just let it be a first level spell. Okay, so now everyone has Bless or Bane on every moment of just no. So concentration basically is a spell. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because that's what I was thinking. Like as a paladin, like I'm gonna give you Bane, and then I'm gonna put Hunter's Mark on you, and I'm just it's gonna go bad real fast.
Yeah, exactly. But concentration is the idea that there are certain spells that have a duration more than instantaneous or more than 1 action. They can last a minute. They can last 10 minutes, provided the magic user maintains the spell. Provided they maintain their concentration, they don't have to keep casting it. They've used the 1 slot. They've shot the bullet to cast Hold Person, and the target fails their save. And so now the target is paralyzed as long as I'm concentrating on the spell. All that means is I can continue fighting. I continue casting other spells. I just cannot cast another concentration spell. Doesn't stop you from doing anything else other than casting another concentration spell. Now,
until you get hit.
There you go. You can have your concentration broken. Anytime you take damage, 1 damage, 50 damage, 11 damage, you have to roll a concentration save. It's just a flat DC 10 Constitution roll, correct?
Yes.
Over 10, you keep your concentration. Below 10, you lose the spell. 1 to 9, you lose the spell. 10 up, you keep it. Spell ends instantaneously that moment. If you get hit through 4 different turns, say like I'm first and I cast the spell, my boy goes second, the first monster goes third, hits me, I make my save. My next boy goes, the next monster walks up, hits me. I still have to make my save. And the old boy over there shoots 2 arrows at me. The first one hits me, I have to make my save. The second one hits me. I'm probably dead by now, but I have to make my save. You know?
For caster, yes, you're probably dead by now.
But so that's the balancing act of concentration. It seems like a pain in the butt, but I promise you, it exists to make your life a little bit more manageable as a dungeon master. Nothing like sending a swarm of rats at him and auto-damaging when you have a heavy caster that's doing lots of shit. You take 1 point of damage every round that horde's around you, but I don't care about the damage. Make that con save.
be so mad to be like a character just getting chip damaged every round, and if I managed to keep up concentration until I died from the chip damage, that would piss me off. Like, I'd be so mad.
Dude, I
I'd be
made
so
what, six freaking
yeah,
consecutive concentration saves the other night? That was
yeah,
bad. I knew I was dropping. I figured for sure I was gonna miss one. The only damn rolls I rolled high were the concentration saves, but that's all we
which
needed.
is good. It was good though. It helped us a lot. Yes.
Oh man. So creative spell use is one of the fun parts of getting into the magic. Um, Obviously the devastation that you can drop, the heat that you can bring to the battlefield, the amount that you can, the fact that you can cast wish, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a big deal.
Yeah. So,
Luckily, that's a once a day thing.
well, honestly,
Unless you're a cleric.
divine favor is the better wish
Yeah.
thing because
Yes.
our shit's guaranteed. You
Yeah.
know, wish ain't guaranteed to work the way you want it.
I was gonna say a wish can be monkey pawed. Yeah.
Yep. Divine favor. You don't need no wish. Make a cleric. Get yourself to get the divine wish, man.
I love divine favor.
Yeah, it's a little more. It's a little more funneled because you can't ask for anything out of the domain of your god. Otherwise, the DM gets just to say no. But there's no twisting of it. There's no monkey pawing. That's a great term. There's no gotcha because you worded that wrong bullshit. You know, if it's within the sphere of your god and it's going to help yep, done, cool.
But also, to be fair with that, though, it builds up incrementally. So, like, you don't get 100% chance until you get to level 20 with it.
Very true, very true. So
Yeah.
you've been having to do some serious work for your deity the whole time to get it done.
Yep.
And even then, you can't ask for crazy shit that's not within their purview.
I only got it off once. I had to roll a D100 and get under 10, and I rolled a 4 on a
Hell
D100.
yeah. Hell yeah. That's awesome.
And I was like, yeah.
Right?
It felt so good.
But there's a lot of fun creativity in there. Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, man. They get to summon up this little freaking insta mini harem. I liken it to, like, if you ever see The Witcher, the first episode where Homeboy walks into the wizard's little house that's got all the freaking servant girls and the plants and all that shit. You know, completely out of place, completely out of joint from reality, and it doesn't even exist in view of people. You know, it's a trans-dimensional space that you guys can, you know, hang out and party down in. Dowd's instant fort. Wait, no, that's a magic item. Excuse me.
Yes.
Let's say the instant fortress. That's fun.
Yeah. Trust me, I keep wanting to get to immovable rods so I can put a magic mouth with that item so I can use it as a trap to drop it on top of people.
Mjolnir's hammer right out the butt. So yeah. Now that's a nice segue. Before we finish up, I think we'll probably talk a few more minutes. But you need to know spells if you're using magic items, because a lot of the magic items duplicate spell effects. A lot of the conditions that are presented by spells are also presented by magic items. So they do work together.
Have a spell equivalent to, stuff like that.
Yeah, and technically speaking, any spell effect can be duplicated on a scroll. Now, here's where 5th edition differs from every other edition. I don't remember. You can clarify on 3rd edition. Only a person that could read that spell to begin with can actually use that scroll.
Yes. Yeah, correct.
Back in the day, any schmo could roll off a spell, man. I mean, dude, I scroll case full of shit in my warrior, man. You know, chances of failure were higher. You had chances to fail, but, you know, I'm gonna probably fuck this up, but here's a cure greater wounds.
Yeah. But then on top of that, though, there are classes that can do stuff like that, like the artificer. As you get higher, you can do any scroll. Like, you can cast any scroll, even if you don't know how to cast the spell school. Like, you can cast the scroll. Bards, because they can cast from any school of magic, can technically do any spell scroll.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So, you know, spell scrolls exist in don't be afraid to use them for the same reason. Don't be afraid to use a spell. You know, if you want to be generous and let your other people have a shot at you, that's kind of not a bad thing to allow for if your group is running around without magic users entirely. You know, and there are some things that either say like you got a 4 warrior group, a 4 fighter group. There's only so many magic items that you're going to be able to give this group to handle just traversing areas. So it doesn't hurt to give them some potions that duplicate some spell effects. Give them some potions and some that duplicate. Let them use scrolls if you need to give them that one fucking resurrection or that one raised dead that they really need to have in their pocket just in case shit goes sideways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the freedom, that's the spirit of the game. Whereas the rules work in some instances, other instances, feel free to massage them to balance it for your play group.
So that was one of my favorite things from Goblin Slayer, which is literally just a D&D campaign. Was dude put a scroll of resurrection at the bottom of the ocean, not resurrection, sorry, scroll of teleportation at the bottom of the ocean. So that way, if at any point in time, like he just needed to get the fuck up out of somewhere or stop something from attacking him, he'd be like, "Ocean," and just like shoot it out of a scroll.
Oh no
So,
shit,
like,
man.
that's such a cool idea to do with something like that.
Yeah, no
But
kidding,
yeah,
man. But yeah,
back to the
and
creativity of spells.
I'm sorry.
That's back to the creativity of spells. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So number one, new players, don't be intimidated by the idea of having to learn every spell. You don't have to. You just need to know how do spell slots function in comparison with what you have prepared. DMs, don't be afraid to learn and learn the hard way, because you may have ideas for spells that your players don't have, and they're likely, very likely, going to come up with spells, ways to use spells that you haven't thought of. Relax, enjoy it. Number one. One of the first things that Josh said that I always never really mentioned, but mention quite often: playing a game. Supposed to be hanging out with your friends, having fun. If it's going to make everyone's faces go because you say yes to it, it's worth that moment, man. Even if it makes your life a little bit harder in that encounter as a DM, if everyone's faces light up and they smile and their eyes go ooh, that moment is worth more than your fucking encounter. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that straight out, okay?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
So just enjoy the game, enjoy the moment, learn as you go. Go ahead, dude.
And I think that's part of why I like spellcasters so much too, is because you do have so many moments where you can do stuff like that, where you can be the one that like you might hold on to spells, because I'm bad about that. I hold on to spells forever. But like at some point in time, you're gonna be able to cast something, and you're gonna be able to turn the entire tide of battle in that one cast, and it's gonna be so worth it. Like, and that's part of why I love spellcasters. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, it was shit. We had that Saturday. I ended up killing what? Honestly, was it upwards of 20 skeletons without
yeah,
doing anything?
yeah,
The DM set up 3 skeletal juggernauts, which are fun fights, until you neuter them with some unique spells. Well, not even unique, just smart use of them. Big old juggernauts, man. Big old gigantic, just conglomerates of skeletons. As you beat them down, now that's where he screwed himself. Because as they take damage, X amount should have a skeleton fall off of it. So it shouldn't have been all of them at one time. If he'd had 1 or 2 drop off each time you guys did damage, he probably would have made more saves, and we wouldn't have to. Point being, as the skeleton loses hit points, it falls into a bunch of other skeletons. So we had 3 of these things. The team beat them to shit. I had spiritual guardians going on. Anytime a creature moves into or begins their turn within 30 feet of me, within 15-foot radius or a 30-foot diameter, they have to make a save. No, 30-foot radius. That's right. That was big, wasn't it?
yes.
They have to make a saving throw. If they fail the saving throw, they take 5d6 damage. If they make the saving throw, they take half of that. So the team is blowing up these freaking juggernauts, and the moment they detonate, they turn into skeletons, which started their turn within the radius of my spell. So the moment they start, they had to make a save, and most of them were getting decimated the moment they came into existence. So I mean, it was die rolling and rules that destroyed an undead army with one fucking spell.
Yeah.
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 Which I'm still kind of chuckling about. I was having fun in the moment, but
No, I love it.
You
Yeah,
know.
because I was so worried about it whenever all 3 of them came up at one time. I was like, well,
And for me, it's like time for me to test my build. You don't get that crit. All of you fucking die. You get a heal, and you get hit in the back of the head by my spiritual weapon the whole time I'm doing this. It was wrong. Spell use. It was just, that was 3 spells that I used over 4 spells, include 2 heals, spiritual weapon, spiritual guardian, 4 spell slots that I used in the course of a 6-round combat, and ended up in excess of probably 20-ish, 25, 28 kills for one character.
Exactly.
Creative use of spells,
100%.
So yeah, that's a war story. That's a plus side. That's a good thing. Don't they get fun. Don't be afraid of it. Initially, especially if you're an old dude like me, you remember back in the day when you're magic user. You didn't have a wizard. You had a magic user. You had an illusionist. You had a cleric, and you had a druid. That's it. That was your big four that were casting spells. And your magic user was level 1 and had one slot. And if you took magic missile, you shot one magic missile. So you were guaranteed sometime in the course of 24 hours to do 2 to 5 damage to something. And it's like, fuck being a wizard, dude.
Man.
It's not like that anymore,
back
y'all.
in the day where it was like, oh, this ghost touched you and now you have negative 10 HP forever.
Yeah. But so, I
got
got
12.
Yeah, I got 11 hit points, right? Yeah. I'm level 3, right? Uh-huh. That's why I didn't do all 12. You're like, gee, thanks, DM. So yeah, the game has changed a lot. The casters, they can be scary to prepare for, but I think it's more entertaining. I enjoy it. It's a pleasant challenge to prepare encounters and situations with the library of spells in mind. Don't let it intimidate you. I could talk for 11 hours and still not leave everything and still leave so much out for what to prepare for.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm going to tell you is just let it go and learn from it. That's the best thing you can do is say yes a lot and see what happens. Straight up. When your player comes to the table and says, hey, I want to try this and this and this, fuck it, try it. Because until you roll it out and see what works, and until you've thought about it to see how it's going to work at higher levels, you don't know. That's how you learn magic, using magic in D&D, both as a player and as a DM. Say yes, try it out, be creative, have fun with it, man.
As a tip, though, don't put an artificer in a low magic setting unless your player can police themselves.
And thank you for my brother for doing that.
Yeah, because we found out real fast that if I power built my character, he'd be stupid overpowered in that world.
I'd have to hunt him down with the Circle of 8 and turn him into a museum exhibit if he played the way he could play.
Yeah.
But
oh, sorry, I'm level 10 and I have 32 for my AC. Good luck.
Yeah, no shit, man.
More AC than fucking Tiamat, right.
So, and that's a nice thing. That's a good flip side of that. As much as I'm telling DMs to say yes, to experiment, to encourage your players, think it through, understand your setting. If you're just wanting to try to theory craft something, sit down with a piece of paper and theory craft it. Don't go trying to do shit in the middle of a campaign if you know it's probably going to break stuff. Have the spirit of the game in mind. If you're entering, especially if you're an experienced player, you're coming into a campaign, be mindful and respectful of the setting as you're using magic, as you're setting up your character. There's nothing worse than going through the effort to build this high fantasy setting and feel obligated to say yes to people when it breaks the story, when it breaks the background of it. So be mindful of it's just mindfulness. Be mindful of the situation, the story that you're getting into as you pick your spells,
Absolutely. You say it all the time, your fun should never come at, everybody else's expense. Like, it might be fun for you, it might be cool, but like if it's going to make everybody else's life miserable, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those that comes with honestly with experience as much as everything else. Experience and maturity. Sometimes it's like you're about to do something. I know this is going to piss them off, but it's going to be so cool. It's like, was it cool enough to be worth pissing people off, though?
Yeah.
In that briefest moment of time, it is. But for the next 2 hours of rule argument and butthurt players, that moment was not worth it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's not like conflate that with like if you want to fuck around with your other party members and they're okay with the joke, that's fine. But like, don't make something that's going to make the forever game miserable for them. If it's something that is in that moment and it lasts that moment, then you're probably okay. But if it's something that's going to happen continuously or for a long period of time, then yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, that's what it's.
And that's a good point. That's not even a magic thing. That's spell use, behavior, pickpocketing each other, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Check in with each other. Check in with your fellow players. Check in with your DM on it. But just kind of, we're gonna go ahead and close up here. But yeah, man, have fun with magic, you guys. don't be intimidated by it unless, and this is going to sound like a dick thing to say, unless you really hate reading, then you probably don't want to mess with the magic user unless you've got a good audio book, a good, something that you can have someone, text to speech, drive home podcast that reads off every one of the spells to you and you can memorize them that way. Great. You're the exception to what I just said. But that's probably the absolute positively worst thing about being a spellcaster is you have to read a little bit more than a warrior.
Yeah.
That's it. Other than that, everything is learnable, and it's just it adds so much more to the game. Don't be afraid of it.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to add before we close up, brother?
No, I think I've said it. Magic users are fun. Definitely play them.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah. Well, this is Jim and Josh chatting D&D, our Magic User Edition. We're glad you joined us here. I think you're finding this now on 2 of our channels, Grizzly Tenfin and DM Geezer Jim. So we thank you for support in either or both. If you're on my channel, you want to help out a brother, go check out Grizzly Tenfin. So search them through Google the same way you're finding my stuff. Actually, we'll probably get a link over to your stuff here pretty soon, and I'll make.
Oh yeah, I can shoot it to you.
Yeah, you can.
I can do the opposite for you too.
Yeah. So pretty soon you'll be seeing these chats on both of our channels, and if you're on one or the other, we ask that you support the other because we're doing this as a partner, and both of us would love to have the subscriptions and the views across the board. If you like him and not me, I get it. If you like me and not him, I get it. But nonetheless, help a brother out.
Right now it's going to be mostly the same information. I finally started streaming and stuff like that, so once I start doing little clips of that, I'll just have to learn to edit.
Yeah.
Give me 6 months to a year to learn to edit, and and our channels will be different.
Right. Right now, yeah, exactly. But that's okay. Shit. You're a little bit more player centric. I'm a lot more world building and DM centric. So you get a good perspective from both of our channels. Even if we are talking about the same thing, we're not going to be talking about the same thing at the same time. And you get like I said, different perspectives, different generations. You can see his stuff is nowhere near as wide as this stuff. So I got at least 20 years on the guy.
Yeah.
But alas,
I'm still old though.
Well, dude, it's like, yeah. Well, I don't know. Cindy's not around. 30 is old to her. Remember the running joke?
It's me or you, Jim.
What? It did what? For what?
Oh.
What are you seeing? You're freaking me out. I'm still recording here. Why am I freaking out here? Are you there? Oh shit! I just lost Josh. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording here. Apparently, we had a Discord outage, but we're ending anyway. Thanks a lot, DM Geezer Jim here. Check me out on Etsy. Check me out on Patreon. Check me out on Facebook. Check me out on Twitch, and like and follow here. Share it with your other buddies. Appreciate you.